Hello everyone, my name is Ever Melendez, and today we'll be talking about Jacques-Louis David's Oath of the Horatii. It's a history painting approximately 129 inches tall by 167 inches wide. It hangs at the Musée de la Ville in Paris, France, which is a renowned art museum. So when it was released in 1784, Oath of the Horatii was released in opposition to the contemporary art style at the time, which was Rococo. This is Birth of Venus by Francisco Wilshire, painted in 1780, and this is an example of what Rococo looked like. Unlike Oath of the Horatii, this has a lot of feminine and curvilinear forms, and it's supposed to be soft. It's important to note that Oath of the Horatii opposed this when it came out, because Oath of the Horatii gave rise to a new style called Neoclassicism, which would later be tied down to the French Revolution and the Napoleonic era. And this particular art style at the time was linked to the aristocracy and the nobility of France. So this kind of style was basically what rich people in France would look for. Rococo is also one of those weird eras that just gives you a lot of flying babies. So you can definitely tell the difference right away. For one, you can strongly see the use of the complementary color scheme with an emphasis on red. You also see the use of linear perspective, and it verges on the swords, because that's where the vanishing point is. And everything about this painting is supposed to channel your attention towards the swords. You see a lot of implied lines that go towards it, and you see a lot of action that kind of just revolves around it. And this painting is highly representational. What's interesting to me is that the women on the right seem to provide a type of glance back at the visual style of Rococo. They're visually a lot softer than the men on the left, and they do have a lot of more curvilinear forms to them. As opposed to the men on the left, they kind of just have angular forms. And also, you can get a sense of mass under the robes, which was a revival of the Roman and Greek styles, and it kind of just goes back to David breaking away from Rococo at the time. And this is something that, if you study Neoclassicism, you can see pretty much throughout all of them. On the left, you see the three brothers painted in a slightly more affirmative and aggressive manner than the women on the right. You can kind of deduct that from the strong and angular lines that you can see throughout the men. They're also highly idealized, even the man in the center, which is their father, and this is supposed to project them and project their masculinity over the femininity on the right side. So this is what the architecture would have looked like had there not been anybody there. And it kind of just goes back to the whole argument that this is a geometric based painting. So what it evokes in the viewer is kind of like this sense of rational and calm behavior, which is funny because when you think about it, there's a lot of action going on with the people. And so you have all this action going on in the foreground, with the man pointing at the swords and the father holding the swords up, the woman on the right crying, and then you have this environment that kind of just encapsulates everything, and it brings you back to a rational and peaceful place kind of thought. So it balances out all the action in the foreground with its pretty much because it's so still. Overall, this is a pretty visually and kind of conceptually balanced painting too. You have the three men on the left that are, in a sense, getting ready to fight and kind of pushing towards some kind of struggle. And then on the right side, you have the three women that are kind of established as the nurturers and the caregivers, which is, it's just kind of like a balance conceptually and visually of what the painting has to offer. And then you also have the background that kind of just encapsulates everything and all the action that's going on, and it kind of just contains it. So Oath of the Horatii tells a gritty story of an early city of Rome that's in constant conflict with its neighboring city, Alba. And instead of sending their armies to fight each other, they decide to send the three warriors from each side to fight to the death. The winner of the death match emerging as the winning side on the war. So, from the Alban side, they have three brothers from the house of Horatii selected to fight in this battle. And from the Roman side, they have the three brothers from the house of Horatii that you see here in this painting. Now, it seems pretty straightforward, except that one of the daughters from the house of Horatii is married to one of the men that's going to fight from the house of Horatii. So she's kind of like a rock in a tough place. She's faced with either losing her brother and her city or losing her husband. And that is partially a reason why they're painted a bit like if they're in mourning, because they're going to lose somebody, may it be one of the men present there or the husband of one of the daughters. So Rome emerges victorious from the conflict, naturally, and when the surviving brother comes home to share the joy and the victory that he just brought back to the city for his people, he sees that his sister is in mourning. He proceeds to kill her because of her lack of patriotism. So, though this story is pretty sad, it does promote, in a sense, the putting forth of the state before the individual. So, in the painting Oath of the Horatii, it's generally agreed that it's a call to arms for the French people. So the political atmosphere in France in the 1780s wasn't the most pleasant. They just help us, good old-fashioned America, gain independence from the British Empire. However, this put France in a state of debt. And to make up for that debt, France started to tax its citizens quite heavily. So food and basic resources became very scarce and very expensive. And yet you still had the nobility that were tax exempt. So the rich people paid no taxes and in fact got richer in this time of debt, and the poor suffered and inherently got poorer. What's interesting to me is that Oath of the Horatii is a complete upscale call to arms, and it's a full call for rebellion, but it doesn't do it outright. It starts off subtly. It doesn't go into the rebellion head on. It changes the fundamental concept of art, and it defies what people consider art at the time, or at least contemporary art and popular art. Then it uses its distinct visual styles to create a sense of urgency. You can see this clearly in the men eager to fight and the father raising up the swords. Then David uses the mythological story to drive home a sense of patriotism and sense of duty to the country, to get rid of the monarch, essentially. And so, when you put these three elements together, you get a fully fledged bona fide insurgent. This is my art piece entitled Degradation of Progress. It's approximately 18 inches tall and 24 inches long. It's an oil on canvas in part with paper on top with ink. It sits in my room. It was inspired by Jackson Pollock's strip paintings and the abstract expressionist movement in general. When I was making this painting, I was thinking about universal trends, and one of the trends that I saw throughout all of human history was each civilization kind of goes in through the same mistakes. So you have this universe that kind of tears into this super elaborate and complex maze, and the maze is supposed to represent the process to do something good in society in general. Now, it's true, acts of small kindness and good-heartedness are very well accepted, but the truth is, without a major change in policy or anything like that, American exceptionalism won't work. The American Empire will fall again, just like every other ancient civilization that's come before us. So I made the maze in a representation of how hard it is to pass a policy that's good for the people and not so much for the aristocracy. And it's supposed to be visually overwhelming, actually, as if one doesn't even want to attempt to solve it. And it's just easier to go on with one's daily lives. The universe kind of tearing into it is a symbol that this has happened before, and it will happen again. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.